What's going on, guys? So today we're here with a 2009 Nissan Altima Coupe. So at the time of this recording, it was extremely windy, so I'll be doing a voiceover for the first portion of the video, and then later we'll be moving into the driving of the video, which I'll be back on the regular microphone. So just to talk about this quickly, 2009 Nissan Altima Coupe, there's a couple of these cars around. They're kind of common, but not too common. Only a few people really bought them because if you wanted the Altima, you probably wanted the sedan. But there are a few people who found this as like an entry-level sports car. So now to just talk about the overall looks of the car. Some people find it pleasing, some people do not. It's a pretty general look. There's nothing that stands out too much about it. But the people who do own it generally find it to look fairly good. They may not show it off too much, but overall they're happy and content with the overall look of the car. This particular model of the Altima Coupe is equipped with the 17-inch alloy wheels. A lot of them came with steel wheels, being a more base model car, but this one has the nicer wheels. They are still not the best design in my opinion, fairly bland, but they are nicer than the option of steel wheels and make it look a little bit better compared to other vehicles on the road. Overall, the car is a fairly good looking car. If you're looking at the ride height of it, it's fairly high. It could be lower. You can do a couple things to make the cars look nicer. You can have the tinted windows like this model right here. If you could get some lowering springs or a different set of wheels to make it stand out compared to other Altima Coupes on the road. But overall, most people will be content with this look and have no complaints. Moving on to the engine. This is the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. There was a 3.5 liter V6 option, although those are not very common, especially with the 6-speed manual like this model here. This engine made about 175 horsepower and around the same in that in torque. This gives you a fairly decent fuel economy, about 26 miles per gallon combined. Although that's not the best, it's also not the worst, and the vehicle gives you a fair amount of power to be moving onto the highway and merging without any real issues, but also not too much power, therefore you're not burning too much gas and having terrible fuel economy. If you wanted the 3.5 V6, it does give you definitely a lot more power, much worse fuel economy. Altogether, this 4-cylinder engine gives you a decent amount of power. For someone who's just starting out with a somewhat sporty car, it's definitely a good option. Alright guys, moving on to the trunk. So you'll see this trunk is not that large. It's actually fairly small. The opening is a decent size. However, the load for it, it's really high. So you don't get a lot of space from the ground to the top of the trunk, making it fairly small. Luckily, you do get the seats that fold down so you can fit some larger items going through it. But in terms of overall space, it's fairly limited. You do get a spare tire. Let me just lift this up here. You get a spare tire, you get the components to jack up your car if you're on the street. You're supposed to have a tow hook, but that's gone from this owner's car. But overall, not a lot of space, but it'll suffice. You know, this is a coupe, you're not expecting the most. If you have the sedan's trunk is fairly large, especially in comparison to this one. But as a coupe, you know, there's not much you can ask for. It kind of comes with the territory of buying a two-door car. Alright, climbing inside of the Altima Coupe. This is just like a standard Altima. Everything around this will be the same as a sedan. In the infotainment system here, you just get a pretty standard one. You'll see this in a lot of Altimas. There's different configurations that are available depending on which version of the car you got. But this one has a fairly standard one. You got your auxiliary input. You get a digital display here. Really basic one that just reads out lets the radio station you're on, because there's nothing really else. It'll say CD, aux, whatever you're on. Your climate control is fairly simple. Press whichever one you want. Max AC, temperature, fan speed. It's nice that these are all actual dials. The only thing is now you're just dealing with the older dials where they just had a color gauge instead of like a digital readout of what temperature it actually is. However, that's what you're paying for. This is not a terribly expensive car, and you get those basic features with it. You also get a sunroof. I'll show you guys right here. Not all Altimas came with a sunroof, but a lot of them did. Even the coupes, some coupes don't. Some coupes would come with leather seats, some don't. Moving on to storage in this car. This car actually has a lot of storage. Being a front-wheel drive, there's no drivetrain, main drivetrain components going through the center of the car. So they have that to make creative space, or to create bigger spaces. So if I look show you guys into here, you get a very large opening there. You get your cigarette lighter, your 12-volt plug-in if you want to charge your devices. You have a cup holder here. You get your glove box, and you get your mat pockets. You also get a 2-tier armrest. So the bigger part here, and you can pull a second clip, you get a shorter part on top. The car also comes with one-touch windows up and down for both windows. It's only a coupe, so it's not that big of an effort. for Nissan to make them one touch, because you don't have to do it for all 4 doors. And then other than that, one of the biggest features is that you get a proximity key. This is the same standard Nissan key that you see with a lot of cars from this era and the current cars. They're still using this key. I guess they're going by the philosophy, if it's not broken, don't fix it, because this key works just fine. It's nice and light, easy to carry around. So put your clutch in, press start, and the car comes to life. Now, the one I have here is a 6-speed manual. Most of the cars are automatics that use a CVT. Everyone, as a lot of people know, the CVT does have quite a few issues. They tend to fail. So if you are worried about that and you do know how to drive manual, it's not a bad idea to go with the 6-speed manual. They're really easy to drive, has a really easy light clutch, and you don't have to worry about the failure of the CVT. I'm just going to show you quickly while the display is on. The radio doesn't show much, like I said, just a basic digital display, and that's pretty much what you get there. Alright guys, taking off in the Altima Coupe. So I'm just going to tell you guys how I feel about this driving experience. Like I said before, this is the 6-speed manual, so we're just going to go for a quick drive and see how it feels. So first things first, guys, the shifter is not the best feeling shifter in the world. It makes an interesting sound every time you shift gears, kind of like you're slotting into, I don't know how to describe it, but something made out of plastic is what it feels like when you're slotting in. It doesn't have a very like tight feel, and the gears are kind of vague, like you know exactly where you're going. I'm sure you get used to it driving it over time, but right off the bat, it's not the most confident, inspiring shifter. However, I did notice as well that the gear ratios are really set up for fuel economy. This car gets up to speed fairly quickly, and at most speeds, it's running at a fairly low RPM, even in 5th gear, and we go to 6th gear. So in this car, 6th gear really just like a highway gear. You don't really want to touch it in the city, or you're going to hear the engine bogging out. Unlike a lot of other cars where you can run 6th gear in the city, no problem, going 60 kilometers an hour, and it wouldn't be an issue. And this one kind of struggles at that pace. So you kind of have to be going quite a bit faster, be using 6th gear, pretty much highway speeds at that point. You know, but it's pretty quick for what it is. It's nothing crazy, but if you're looking for a car that has decent passing power, or that's able to get up on the highway speeds, you don't have that much an issue, you're not really struggling to get up to those speeds or to pass people on the highway, and you still want good fuel economy, this definitely can handle that. It's not too difficult to get up to the speeds you need to go, or to keep up with traffic in this car. Notice too, the clutch is really light, really easy to use. The engagement point is fairly predictable. Only thing, again, like I'm saying, that shifter, out of the feeling of each gear, is not the best. I don't know if that's changed in newer ones or being so off of the manual, but it's really not the best feeling. But the engagement and how easy it is to drive is definitely a bonus on this car. Especially those gear ratios, the highway gear ratios, it makes sense, you know, like if you have a 6-speed car, you're not using 6-speed or the 6th gear to race people, you know, you just want 6th gear to be the most efficient gear possible. So it makes sense to me, at least I appreciated that. If your 6th gear is going to put your RPMs real low, that's great when you're driving on the highway. That's what you want, because you have the best fuel economy possible, and it makes sense. You're not going to be using 6th gear to really try to pull past people. If you need to pull past, you drop to 5th, you drop to 4th, take off, back to 6th. Then everything's good and you're ready to go. So I think this is a fairly good set of gear ratios for this car. Another thing I noticed is that the suspension is really floaty. As expected, you know, this is an economy car. It's not a sports car, but even just taking off, you rock back and forth. If you tap on the brakes, the car dives quite a bit. And I know the suspension on this particular car, the springs have been replaced in some of the shots, so they're pretty much new ones. and that's just how the car feels, I guess. Like you saw in the exterior clip, the car rides like really high off the ground. It just kind of looks goofy at the time, but of course that can be resolved if that's something that bothers you. But the ride is soft and it wobbles a lot each turn. But you know, that's kind of the territory you're in, and it's nothing really to complain about. It's just if you don't like it, then maybe this is not the car for you. If you don't mind it and you don't even notice it, then this could be a good option. Because like I said, it has enough power for regular people's daily driving. It has enough room if you have the stand. If you have the coupe, you probably don't care about room that much anyways. Although it does have 5 seats, because it's not rear-wheel drive and it's front-wheel drive, there's no drivetrain going through the rear. So you do get a flat floor, and then you get 3 seats in the back. If you're trying to think this is like a G35 or a G37 or something, those cars only have 4 seats and they just have like a cup holder thing in the center. This one has 2 cup holders on each side for each passenger, and then just an actual basic seat in the middle. It's also fairly quiet in here, and the ride is fairly comfortable. I couldn't really complain. I can see people driving this on long distances and being very good, comfy in their drive, and not feeling any back pains or anything like that. The seats support you well. If you're a bigger person, you actually kind of fit very well in them, like I am. And they're not too tight. And these are cloth ones, and they're actually really soft. So although this is not a luxury car by any stretch of the imagination, you can be very comfortable in it driving it every day. On that note, guys, if you enjoyed this video, you found it informative, and you have any other cars you'd like me to review, or drop a comment down below, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.